listening to the best of the Martha Zoller Show. To hear the full show each day, tune in to AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN or log in to accesswdun.com and click the Listen Live button from 9 to 11, Monday through Friday.
Steve Moore is here with me right now. I mean, the more that Kamala Harris gets pressed about the economy, the more she shows that she doesn't know. You can't spend 1%. The fact of the matter is that the top 1% pays 40% of the income taxes and the top 10% pays 90%. Rich people, I think, are paying their fair share.
Hi, Martha. Good to be with you. Well, I guess Kamala Harris isn't too good at math because you're right. The top 1% pay, actually, the latest number is 46%.
Okay.
So you were too low. 46%, almost half of the income tax is paid by 1 out of 100 taxpayers. We have probably the most progressive tax system in the world in terms of depending on very, very rich people to pay the burden of government. If you raise all of these taxes on businesses, because most of the people in the top 1%, what they do is they own, invest, or operate small businesses. That's what they do for a living. So you tax them more, you tax these businesses more, you're going to get fewer jobs. I mean, it's pretty simple. If you take money out of the business and the owners won't have enough money to hire more workers, expand. They may have to lay off workers. So this is an assault. I said this on Fox the other day that I think the Kamala Harris agenda is the most anti-business, anti-employer tax plan that I've seen in my 40 years of following this stuff. It's a very dangerous idea. And, of course, I think we talked about this last week, but she also wants to tax unrealized capital gains, which is craziness. I mean, as one of my friends said, well, if they're going to tax me on my unrealized capital gains, then are they going to give me my money back if I lose money in the stock market? I said, I doubt that.
So what is your sense on, because it's really hard to know what this group of people that are undecided are thinking. I mean, you see the panels that guys like Frank Luntz put together. You see the panels that lots of news organizations put together of people that say they're undecided voters. Yeah. But do we have any sense of really where they are?
You know, I've watched some of those focus groups with these undecided voters, too. And I think a lot of, by the way, I think probably 80 to 90% of people have made up their mind. It is that final 10 to 15 to 20% that are going to decide the election. And I think a lot of them are thinking, well, maybe I don't like Donald Trump. I mean, a lot of those people, right? That they don't like Trump's behavior, or they don't like the things that he says. And I have two sisters like that. They're undecided voters, but they don't kind of like Trump's behavior. But they admit that, boy, Trump's better for the economy. I think almost everybody would agree for that when it comes down to the economy and pocketbook issues. So I think that the real issue is going to be, whether people are going to vote on things like Trump's behavior or abortion, or will they vote on what's best for the future financial solvency of our country. I mean, did you see, by the way, Martha, that I don't think we talked about this last week, but October 1st, as you know, was the start of fiscal year 2025. So we're officially in fiscal year 2025 right now. It began October 1st. So that means we closed the books on fiscal year 2024. Martha, do you know how big now this is the initial estimate. We don't have the final numbers, but the initial estimate's pretty good. Do you know what the budget deficit
I'm going to say $2.3 trillion.
Yeah, you got it. You must be reading our hotline. That's exactly right. I shouldn't be laughing. That's a horrendous number, folks. That is the biggest credit card debt in the history of the world. And what the hell are we doing here with this massive we're supposed to be in a recovery. Biden's running around saying how great the economy is doing, and we're still borrowing $2.3 trillion. Now, look, we borrowed a lot of money during COVID, because we shut down half of our businesses and half the economy shut down. So government had to, step in and pay the bills. But we don't have COVID anymore. That ended 3.5 years ago, and we're still borrowing $2.3 trillion.
Again, I'm not the biggest fan of Rand Paul, but you can't deny the fact that he is kind of libertarian in how he approaches money. And he says you take 2019, which I think was $4.3 trillion.
Yeah.
You add 22% for inflation, you get to about 5.4, and that's what we should be spending. And 2019, by the way, was $1 trillion deficit. So it's not like that was a skimpy budget.
That's a really good point. And I'm a big fan of Rand Paul myself. I'm maybe a little bit more libertarian than you are in philosophy, but I think Rand is right. Why we added all this extra spending, right? In the emergency, but then we didn't stop the spending after the emergency was over. In fact, Biden came in, the emergency was over, and he spent another $5 trillion. So that was why it was such a financially reckless thing to do. Now, look, I'm not here to defend, and I'm a Trump guy. I love Trump. By the way, my book is #1 on economics on Amazon right now.
You are. That's right.
I'm really
I haven't had to buy a copy, Steve. It's like,
well, good. I like them. But, just if people want to get it, just go to the TrumpEconomicMiracle.com, and you can get it. I think it's $14.95 or something like that. But my point is, I don't always agree with Trump on the economy. I agree with him 80% of the time. But, he and I have had my disagreements, and I do think we spend too much as Republicans, Martha. But you got two big spending parties in Washington right now. And then you've got, if you notice, by the way, every few days, Kamala Harris comes out with something new that's going to be free, whether it's free student loans or free health care or free child care or free down payments on your homes. Where's the money going to come from?
Yeah, we just have got to have, first of all, we've got to have a House of Representatives that takes back control of the budget. We are allowing the Senate to have way too much control over this.
Yep.
We have got to win back the Senate. And, and I was really, really happy to see that Kevin McCarthy did not take his ball and go home, and he is putting $14 million into contested House races. And I am very excited to see that.
Yeah. Well, look, this is big. The House is very close, the Senate is very close, and obviously the presidential race is very close. So all of these races matter. And even, I just urge people to vote, no matter what your opinion is. Go out and
vote. Today is the last day to register to vote in Georgia.
It is.
Get out there to register to vote today. Even if you miss
know why
this,
that's important, by the way, Martha? If you don't vote, you can't complain.
No.
You can't complain about what the politicians are doing if you don't actually go out there and cast your vote. This is your fundamental right as a citizen. And what makes me so angry is, that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden want non-citizens to vote. I'm sorry, that's not allowed in the Constitution. We should have voter ID. Can somebody please explain to me why, when you go to the voting booth, you shouldn't have to show an ID to prove that you are who you say you are and that you're registered to vote and you're a citizen?
And we've got to make sure that in schools and, and I'm on the State Board of Education in Georgia, and we're working hard on this to make sure that we are getting civics education, economic education, and getting that stuff to where it's real world, because kids have got to have this before they get out of high school. And we have to have a responsibility.
They're not getting it. In most of the states, they don't get that today.
Steve,
I bet most people don't even know, most kids who graduate from high school don't even know what the Bill of Rights is.
I think you're right. So, Steve, before I let you go, this is the anniversary today of the attack, the horrible attack that Hamas did on Israel. Where were you when you heard about this attack last year?
I don't remember exactly where I was, but I remember I was just horrified by these attacks. And, this has been going on in the Middle East for, as long as I remember in the 70s, when you had these attacks. And it is just so heartbreaking that they cannot, have peace in that region of the world. And it's just heartbreaking. It really is, because these are great people. Israel has a right to be a nation. And I think there are so many people in the Middle East who still have not accepted that. And it's really, really important that we defend Israel. But we also have to make sure that, and I agree with Trump, by the way. I don't think a lot of this stuff would have happened if he were still. I don't think you would have Russian tanks in Ukraine right now if Trump were still president, because they wouldn't have had the money to do it. We helped fund the missiles that were fired into Israel because of our stupid war on American energy.
And I agree with you 100%. Stephen Moore, thank you so much for always being with us. And we got 30 days. And 4 weeks from tomorrow, we are going to be going to the polls. But vote early when it's available. October 15th is when you can start voting early. I'm voting early in person the first day I can. And then we will all keep working together.
You know why that's important, by the way? Because if you vote early, your vote probability of voting is 100%. If you wait till Election Day, we know this. Your vote probability of voting is only 65%. Because 1 out of 3 people either forget or they become too busy and they can't vote. So vote early, because that way we know your vote is cast.
It's local radio, and that's why you're listening. It's the Martha Zoller Show on AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN.
Roger Gewolb is here with me today, and, I am very cynical, Roger, about spending. And I did ask Mike Johnson when I interviewed him a few weeks ago that if we give you all three, the president, the House, and the Senate, how do we know you're going to do any better of a job? Because the last 3 times you've had all the power, you haven't. With that set aside, we've got less than 4 weeks till the election. Early voting starts in my neighborhood on Monday. I'm going to be voting early. What are your thoughts as you look at this election from where you are?
I keep thinking how H.L. Mencken, the great American literary critic, wrote long ago, that the American public votes on emotions rather than realities. And I'm just terrified that they are going to elect Kamala Harris president based on her views on abortion and elementary school truantism and other things that are important, but have nothing to do with the real challenges that face us, like Russia, China, North Korea, Islamist terrorism, Ukraine, Middle East. In a completely unprecedented move, 2 days ago, the head of the British Secret Service, MI5, James Bond, well, he's MI6. Anyway, the head of the British Secret Service actually went on television. You're not even supposed to know who this mystical figure is. And he told us about the many, many, many dozens of attempts to create havoc on the streets of Britain that they have foiled, coming from mainly Iran, Russia, and China in recent times. It was absolutely terrifying. And much of it is coming from indoctrinated youth, people under 18. So the same thing must be happening in the States.
Well, we had a guy arrested. We had a guy arrested a couple of days ago in Oklahoma who was an Afghan immigrant that was planning a terror attack on Election Day, and the FBI was able to thwart that.
Yeah, but my point is that Kamala and Waltz they're talking about emotive issues like abortion, and they're not telling us how they're going to stand up to this stuff or what they're really going to do about the budget or spending, as you say. So I find it all very daunting.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree, because I think along with all the national security challenges you've mentioned, the fact that we have 37 trillion, I've even lost track of what the total deficit, the whole total debt is, but 2.3 trillion in 1 year is just unacceptable. I mean, that's not, that cannot be in anybody's lexicon the right way to run things, because you've got to have some flexibility to deal with these problems that we've got around the world.
The thing that really did it for me, if there was any chance at all that I was going to vote Democratic, what finished it was, I can't remember who, asking Kamala Harris in a video I saw the other day multiple times.
It was from The View, asking her if she would do anything different?
No.
Oh, okay.
This was a man who said to her, yeah, but look, I keep asking you over and over again, and you keep talking about other things. Are you going to answer me? Why did illegal immigration quadruple under your watch? And how are you going to do something about it now when you've had almost 4 years to? And she goes, I was born in a very middle-class neighborhood, and I had really great parents, and I believe that tampons should go in boys' what, I mean, it's just unbelievable to think that this person could deal with the world leaders who are our adversaries.
Well, it's interesting. In Sweden, they are now deporting a lot of the people they welcomed 10 years ago because it is putting such a stress on their economy. But also, from a terrorist standpoint, they had imported some people that were doing bad things in their country. That's happening all around the world.
Absolutely. And in the same way, in the same manner, at the same time, and I am just deluged with messages from followers saying, wake up, Dr. Roger, this is a conspiracy. This isn't just stupidity.
Well, I had an old friend of mine that said the problem with illegal immigration is that Republicans look at them as workers and Democrats look at them as voters. And because of that, nobody really wants to solve the problem. And you can name 10 issues, Roger, that we have like that, where, there are people on both sides, and I hate both sidism, but just hear me out. They're making money off of these issues. Either they have organizations or whatever it is. So if you solve the problem, they can't make any more money. And I know I sound cynical, but I feel cynical right now.
Well, you're absolutely right, of course.
And that's why I think, the one thing that whether you like Trump or not, whether you do whatever, is that his commitment to get rid and to adjust the administrative state and to take names and to get things out, I believe him more than I do Kamala Harris. I think Kamala Harris just wants to add more and more and more and more. And I think Donald Trump is willing to start cutting agencies, and we've got to do that.
He is definitely going to drain the swamp. There's no doubt about that. And I think everybody is looking forward to that.
Putting the talk in news talk. It's the Martha Zoller Show on AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN.
I'm going to do something a little different here for this segment that I hope you're going to enjoy. We have with us Anat Sultan Daydan, who is the Consul General for the Southeast for Israel. But we also have Brent Cox, who is our state rep for House Seat 28. And he is running for re-election, but they are good friends. And we have Yom Kippur is starting at 5 o'clock tonight, which is the Day of Atonement. And we just thought it would be really appropriate with all the big things that have happened this week related to our relationship with Israel to kind of have these two folks on together, and they were available at the same time, and so it worked out. But I'm going to start with Anat because, it has been a very big week, Anat. We had a beautiful ceremony here in Gainesville in commemoration of the October 11th attacks and in remembrance of those who have died, those who are still in captivity, and those who we are still waiting, to come home. And it was beautiful that in our little small community where we don't even have a synagogue, we don't have that, but we have people, Jewish, Christian, of all faiths that came together outdoors on a beautiful evening at a memorial that Joey Summer put up, and we're able to remember that. So welcome to the program, Anat.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Martha. And thank you also. It is always heartwarming to hear of communities that remember, that make the effort to commemorate, because not only do we owe it to the victims of October 7th to remember, we owe it also to the hostages. There are still 101 hostages remaining in brutal captivity in Gaza. And we also must keep reminding the world that Israel is still at war, and this is not just Israel's fight. So I really, really appreciate the commemorations and the communities who are standing with us now when it matters most.
And Brent, you had the opportunity, Brent Cox, we've gotten to know each other over the last couple of years, but you had the opportunity to get to know Anat as a result of this issue. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the passion for Israel has been something that, frankly, has been raised to appreciate Israel my whole life. And through relationships with Rabbi Silverman down in Cobb County, the door is, been wide open, and the relationships have been made. So Anat has become, and her family, strong friends of my family as well, but going to Israel about 4 or 5 weeks right before October 7th occurred, and just, having our feet on the very ground in the Hezbollah tunnels and down on the Gaza border, a lot of those places, and then coming home, October 7th hits, and of course, Martha, as you know, we've had an overwhelming support from Hall County and all of Georgia, from our speaker to our lieutenant governor to our governor, and just showing them that we support and stand with them, and that they need to make the decisions that's best for Israel to protect them, and that we 100% back and support what they're doing.
And I mentioned at the opening that tonight is the kind of the end of the High Holy Days. It started with Rosh Hashanah, and then tonight I guess it's 5 o'clock or it's sundown until sundown on Saturday. And I hope I'm saying this right. I've always called it Yom Kippur. I don't know if that's the correct way to say it, but tell people what that is.
So Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, is a day in which we pause and take the time to self-reflect on the past year, on what we have done, on any wrongs that we may have done, and do that self-reflection as we look to the new year ahead. It is a time for forgiveness. We ask forgiveness of those whom we may have wronged in the past year. And this year, I think, being at war, it is even more meaningful for all of us because, of course, we have a personal self-reflection, but we have also a communal one, a larger one in terms of what we have been through and the year that we look to ahead.
Anat, the opposition party leader in Canada was asked about Israel and what they were doing, and he said Israel's doing the world a favor by going after the enemies of the West and the Iran-baked, and I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what he said. And Douglas Murray, who's been a great friend of Israel, said that Israel is fighting the wars that the West in many ways will have to fight if you don't win, but also that need to fight. And so what is the status today of where Israel is and where we are in our prosecution of this war?
So what started as an unprovoked, horrific attack by the Hamas terror organization on Israel on October 7th did not end with Hamas, because not only do we face that terror threat on our southern border, we face the Hezbollah terror organization on our northern border that joined in attacking Israel on October 8th already and has been since incessantly attacking, firing rockets into Israel aimed at our civilians. We have seen the Houthis in Yemen, Shia militias in Iraq and Syria, all of them driven by the fanatic terror state, the Ayatollah's regime of Iran, who seeks a new world order. They are promoting a radical Islamist ideology that is a threat to all of us, not only to Israel, but to the entire free world. And we are fighting now a war on multiple fronts, all driven by this terror threat that is a threat to not only to regional stability and peace, but to global stability and peace. And we have to address it, and we have to acknowledge that it must be addressed, and this is not just Israel's responsibility. This is not just Israel's fight. Anyone and everyone who stands for the values of the free world should be standing with us in addressing what threatens all of us.
And Brent, Cox, as you are going around your district, how big of an issue is this for you, the people you talk to right now?
Well, somewhat things have shifted as far as our just the campaign within District 28, which is part of Hall and Forsyth. So I'm gonna add something to this, Martha, if that's okay. So since the hurricane occurred and East and Central and South Georgia got hit very hard, so we have an Israeli Consul General in Anat who we're dealing with the war, October 7th. We just celebrated, all of us celebrated Rosh Hashanah. We have Yom Kippur tonight. That she found time in the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs to help bring supplies for North Augusta, South Carolina, Augusta, Georgia. We went to Waycross, Georgia, and Douglas, Georgia, and Coffee County. And this occurred, so I was the logistics guy driving the truck, and Anat and her team, and we drove to North Augusta and walked some of the grounds in Augusta. And yesterday we finished up with our Speaker of the House, Lauren McDonald, our Appropriations Chair, Matt Hatchett, James Burchett out of Waycross, Steve Gooch, whom you know as well. But we all happened to land at the same place in Coffee County. And we rode around, and I know Anat probably as much as myself, by far the most difficult place that was hit. So we have all this food that's being supplied from kind of North Georgia, Hall County. Steve Siphon's done an amazing job, and Derek McCollum, Emory. There's a lot of representatives that have done incredible jobs. But Anat and her team took the time to show the support and love at such a time as this to bless our community and bless our state. So Anat, I just from the state of Georgia, we say thank you. Speaker, I talked to him this morning. He's just so thankful for what you did. Your leadership, despite all that you're doing, it just speaks volumes to us that Israel is a very special place, and we're very blessed and honored to have Consul General Anat in our community.
Martha, may I add to that, please?
Please.
So, first of all, Representative Cox, Brent, is a dear friend to me, to the Jewish people, and to the state of Israel. And we were fortunate to be able to collaborate and work together with him in making this happen this week. We have had a very tough year. We continue to have a very challenging time ahead of us because the war is ongoing. The hostages are still in Gaza. But throughout this year, we have had our friends in the United States standing with us, supporting us. And so when Hurricane Helene hit and the devastation was apparent in much of the region that we cover here in the Southeast, we thought that it would be appropriate to offer a gesture of love and support from Israel to our American friends in their time of need. And thanks to the collaboration with Brent, Representative Cox, we were able to do that. And I am grateful to have been able to have had the opportunity to be on the ground and to share with the people on the ground that Israel stands with them at their time of hardship and need.
Anat Sultan Dedan, we hope you have a blessed holiday ahead of you. I hope it's full of peace and what you look for at this very special day. And Representative Brent Cox, thank you so much for being with us and being flexible with your time this morning, because I thought this was important to have this conversation together.
Thank you so much. And I wish for Israel, for the Jewish people, and for all of us a better year ahead, one that we continue to face and address the challenges together. Thank you so much, Martha.
Thank you, Anat, and thank you, Brent. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Martha.
To hear the full versions of last week's Martha Zoller shows, go to the podcast page at accesswdun.com, and you can follow me on social media at Martha Zoller.